So then we're going to go to Acts chapter 12 today. We finished chapter 11 last time, and we looked at, how the prophet Agabus came and to Antioch, and how Antioch, became this huge church, one of the biggest early churches. Everybody was in Jerusalem, but then the gospel started spreading out, and it went up to Antioch up there, just south of where Turkey is today. And then the apostles, they sent Barnabas up there, and he brought Paul over, and they ministered there, and that church was growing. They were teaching the word of God there for a good length of time. And then this prophet guy named Agabus came, and he told them there's going to be a famine that was going to happen. And so God predicted there for the Christians, told them that something bad was coming and to get ready for it. And so they apparently were a little bit more prosperous up there than the church back in Jerusalem. So they sent an offering down there to help their fellow Christians down in Jerusalem. And Barnabas and Saul, who were leaders in Antioch, took the offering down to give it to the church in Jerusalem. And that got them down there into that area for an important time. So leaders took the money and distributed it. Now we come to chapter 12. Want to look at verse 1 through 4 at first. So about that time, Herod the king laid violent hands on some who belonged to the church. He killed James, the brother of John, with the sword, and when he saw that it pleased the Jews, he proceeded to arrest Peter also. This was during the days of unleavened bread. That's the, you have the Passover and then a whole week when the Jews eat unleavened bread. It's they're two separate kind of festivals, but they're always at the same time. And when he had seized him, he put him in prison, delivering him over to 4 squads of soldiers to guard him, intending after the Passover to bring him out to the people. Now this is, in the New Testament, there are several Herods. And so you might get confused because there was Herod when Jesus was born. He had the babies killed. And now you're reading about another Herod. You got to realize it's like George Foreman. He names all his kids George. And so they're all named Herod. But there's Herod Agrippa. There's Herod the Great. There's Herod Antipas. This is Herod Agrippa. Okay, at this time in the book of Acts, this Herod is called Agrippa. And he's not a Jew. He's what you call a Hasmonean, but when he was 4 years old, his dad was executed. And so his mother sent him to Rome. And he went to Rome there, and he was raised in Rome. And so he was friends with the high-ups in Rome. And that's how he got his position back in Israel. They knew he was from over there. And so he knew various people who became emperors and stuff. He grew up with them. And so they said, we're going to put you in charge over there because we know you. It's all the good old boys, That's how it's always been in life. Yes. People know people, and they put them in positions and stuff, and they give them a leg up and give them, or they weasel around and get themselves a place and so on. So he's in charge now. And it's been a few years. See, Acts goes quickly, and you don't realize sometimes that some years have gone by now. So there's been more and more Christians, more and more people becoming Messianic Jews. Okay, so at first, we've already read that at first, the Messianic movement mostly had favor. People liked them because they were good people. They had a lot of love. They were decent folks. They're Jews, the same as everybody else. Everybody's Jewish. People don't ever get that. They think Judaism and Christianity are totally separate. No, Judaism was first. Christianity came out of Judaism. All the first Christians were Jews. Jesus was a Jew. People don't realize that. It's Jewish. It's a Jewish movement. And so in the beginning. And so the priests, the ones who had Jesus executed, they were the power brokers, and they were all Sadducees pretty much. A certain group. It's a certain sort of like a party. It's almost like a political party. The ones in the Sanhedrin were mostly Sadducees. The priests were Sadducees. Then there were Pharisees as well. There were two parties. And there were people who were Herodians. They were more allied with Herod. But But there were these different parties. And so the priests, the high priests, did not like Messianic believers. They hated Jesus. They had him killed. They hated the apostles. They were against them. The book of Acts chapter 6 tells us that actually a lot of the lower level priests became Messianic believers. So not all priests were against Jesus. Some lower level priests believed in Jesus, but that he was the Messiah. But the high-ups didn't like it from the beginning, and they saw it as a threat to their power. And so for a while, the Christians they got favor, and so the high priests don't like them, but most people are not against them. They're not going to do anything. But now a few years have gone by, and so there's more and more of these people, and it's seen as a threat. So Herod's not really a Jew, but he's the king of the Jews. He's over them because the Romans gave him his power. So he decides to kind of put a stop to this. Probably he hangs out with the upper class priests and all, and they're telling him they don't like this. And so he wants to win favor with them, you know. He wants them to like him because he's got a rule over them, and he's a politician. So he needs them to like him. So he's hearing they don't like these Messianics. So he has James, the brother of John, killed with a sword. He has him executed. So remember, James and John came to Jesus, or one of the Gospels says their mother. They sent their mother, came to Jesus and said, I want to ask a favor of you. And he said, what? And they said, we want to sit at the right and at the left in your kingdom when you rule, at your right and left hand. And he goes, Jesus says, are you able to drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? And it's so really kind of hilarious. They go, yeah, we're able. They had no idea what he's even talking about. Drink the cup he's going to drink. All they're thinking is he's going to be the king, and we want to be at the right and the left. We're weaseling in. They're weasels too. They're trying to get positions in the kingdom. And Jesus says, you able to drink the cup I'm going to drink? Well, we know now, I've been preaching on it Sundays. What was that cup? He said, Father, if it's possible, let this cup pass for me. But nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. And so God said, no, you got to drink the cup, son. It's death. You're going to die. You're going to be crucified. You're going to suffer. That's the cup. Well, these young guys, they don't have a clue what he's even talking about. They say, oh, yeah, we can drink the cup. And Jesus had said to them, you will drink the cup, and you're going to be baptized in the baptism that I'm baptized with. But to give you my right, to sit at my right and left, that's not mine to give. The Father will decide who that is. So anyway, he told them they were going to suffer. They didn't know that. That's what he meant at the time. And so remember, he told them that they were going to suffer. And then at the end of the book of John, he told Peter. Peter had betrayed him, but Jesus restored him and said, I'm forgiving you. I'm taking you back, and you're going to be the rock. I'm going to build my church on you. And he says, Peter, do you love me? And he says, of course I love you. Well, then feed my sheep. And he asked him 3 times, do you love me? And he says, I love you. Why do you keep asking? And he says, look, Peter, when you were young, you got up and you dressed yourself and you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you're old, somebody else is going to take you, and they're going to stretch out your hands, and they're going to take you to a place you don't want to go. So he knew what that meant. Stretch out his hands. That means they're going to crucify you. And so Peter, the first thing he did, this is in the end of the Gospel of John. First thing he did is look at John. He said, well, what about him? And Jesus said, if I will that he stays till I come back, what's that to you? You follow me. In other words, I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen to John. I told you what's going to happen to you. And so you be faithful, Peter. You got to hang in there. And he was, and he was crucified upside down. He didn't want to be crucified right side up. He told the Romans, I'm not worthy. Hang me upside down. My Lord died that way. Hang me upside down. They crucified him upside down according to the legends and the stories that are passed on. So Peter was told he's going to be crucified someday. And he knew that. And he was told that, James and John were told they're going to drink the cup Jesus drank. And but Jesus said, if it's my will that John stay till I come back, what's that to you? So some people thought that meant John wasn't going to suffer. But that's not what Jesus said. Jesus didn't say he's not going to suffer. He just said, Peter, what's that to you? But anyway, here is where what Jesus predicted starts happening. We already saw the first martyr of the church was Stephen. That was in chapter 7 of Acts. That's the first ever martyr. This is the first apostle who was a martyr. Now, for the first time, those 11 guys who survived, Judas hanged himself, but the 11 guys, now one of them's taken out. Herod wants to please the non-Messianic Jews, so he has him killed with a sword, executed. And he saw that it pleased the Jews, so then he had Peter arrested. See, he's feeling it out. Seems to me they don't like these people. Maybe I'll get rid of some of these leaders and then they'll like me more. So he kills the one, and they do like that. So he says, good, get Peter too. People know where he's at. They know where these guys are at. These guys are traveling around preaching and teaching constantly in different homes and stuff, and there's big gatherings, and they're at the temple teaching and stuff. They know who they are. People know that guy. That's that Peter guy. He's one of them. So Herod says, you got James, now get the other one. Get Peter. So they bring him in. He puts him in prison. He delivers him to 4 squads of soldiers. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of like high security, maximum security. 4 squads of soldiers. They take turns, and they're guarding him. And so the idea is it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread right now. It's a big religious ceremony. We're not going to kill him now. We killed James, but we're not going to kill Peter yet. We're going to kill him when that's over. And when the 7 days are over, we'll kill him. And so think about this. Peter has seen these great miracles. We've read some of them. God used him to raise that woman Dorcas from the dead. And Aeneas, who was crippled 8 years, to raise him up from his bed. And to preach the first ever evangelistic sermon. God used him mightily. And he's been kind of on the mountaintop, so to speak. But now he's in prison. And Jesus told him, you're going to be crucified. So imagine what he must have thought. Oh, this is it. They got me now. This is it. And so he's got to stay in prison there for a whole 7 days or whatever. And he's chained. And we'll read a little bit further. He's chained to 2 guards. So you got one chained to this guard and one chained to that guard. And you got to sleep that way at night. You lay down between those guards with chains on you. Can you imagine you turn over and stuff, chains? They hurt you. They rub your wrists and stuff. And they also probably chained their feet. And it's a rough floor. I was in Cambodia in 2000, when was that? 2002, I think. And they showed us this prison where they over there, they killed from 1/3 to 2/3 of the population when Pol Pot took over. And they had just rebar. You know what rebar is, right? You use it in construction, right? It's that rough steel rod. Mm-hmm. They're too cheap. They didn't have chains, so they had like a big long bar of rebar. And then with other pieces of rebar, they bend them around your ankle, and it's bent around the bar, and they're all connected to this bar. So they put like 18, 20 prisoners on one bar, and you got to sleep at night, all like that. You can't turn over. There's a metal thing.
That's what they do with the prisoners?
That's what they did back then when Pol Pot took over. And they had pictures of it and everything. They're laying on the ground. You can't walk. There's 20 of you connected together. So I thought, man, you're lying on the floor and you can't sleep, you can't turn over. What would that be like? Anyway, so Peter is kept in there, and, he's already been told by Jesus himself he's going to be crucified. So let's go on. Verse 5, Peter was kept in prison, but earnest prayer for him was made to God by the church. So when James was taken, apparently they didn't have time to pray, right? He was taken and killed, maybe the same day or something. So, but now Peter's been taken. He's in the prison for a week, so they're praying for him. Why? Well, he's their brother, right? And they love him. Peter's been all around there with them, teaching them, preaching to them. They love him. But also, they need him. He's one of the apostles. The church is so new. They don't know a lot of stuff. They need these apostles to teach them. They don't know all that Christ taught and what they're supposed to do and stuff and how to follow him. And so think about this. Nowadays, if I disappeared, you got no problem. Right up the street is a Baptist church. Over there is an Episcopalian church. Over here is another church, another church. The church is all over. It's on the radio. It's on the TV. You don't need me. You can contact anybody. You'll find somebody. There's something. If I'm taken out, it's no big deal. Back then, what if I was like the only guy who knew Christianity in this part of Florida? You know, he's one of the only guys. They need him. So they pray. Imagine also how it must have felt to them. Like to us, see, we're like, well, the church is everywhere. We'll never be destroyed. There's millions of us. But imagine if you just got a few leaders and, you know, a few churches, and it's like, now they're killing our leaders. How are we going to make it? They're killing our leaders.
Nobody wants to be the leader.
Well, no, but also how are we going to continue? Right now, I sometimes wonder, like last night on the news, they were showing how big tech was up at the Capitol yesterday being grilled by the senator, congressman. I don't remember if it was senator or House, but they were grilling them. Big tech, I guess it was House because Jim Jordan is a Republican congressman. And big tech controls who gets to speak. There were a bunch of doctors who came out in front of the Supreme Court the day before, and they gave a big report, a bunch of doctors, about COVID. And they said, look, somebody's got an agenda. They're lying to us. They're telling us they're spreading fear. This isn't that serious. You got a 99.99 chance of living through this COVID crisis. The only people that are really dying from it are over 80, and they have conditions. If you're under 80, you got a 99.99 chance of you're going to make it through this. And it's just not as bad as they're telling you. We're doctors. One lady's from Africa. She got up. She said, I've personally treated over 350 patients. I give them hydroxychloroquine. It stops the problem. It keeps them from dying. You don't have to die. Nobody has to die. We have stuff now that will work. A virus is coming. And they've said this. Google said, we're not allowing this. They took it down. Facebook took it down. Twitter took down. They took it down. Everybody doesn't have freedom of speech anymore. If they don't like what you're saying, they stop you. Certain preachers and stuff, certain people that say things that they don't like, they stop you. So sometimes I wonder, like, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen? Hello, come on in.
Sorry, someone took me on a 4-mile walk. I had no idea.
Don't worry. We're right in the midst of this, and we're in Acts chapter 12. Verse 5. So the thing is, what I was getting at here is that right now you don't have to worry about that, Alex. We're facing some things right now. Like I'm just getting started with my internet stuff and doing videos all the time. Last night I did a Spanish Facebook Live, and I'm doing that stuff. But these people at any time could just say, we're not having any more of this Christian stuff. We're not having it. Yesterday, John MacArthur, pastor of the Baptist Church, I put him on Facebook last night. I shared a thing that somebody sent to me. John MacArthur has a church of 10,000 or whatever in Southern California, and he has a seminary, and he's a real noted Christian leader. Governor Newsom of California has said churches don't need to meet. We're not going to allow that. But abortion clinics are open. Liquor stores are open, cigarettes are open. Lots of things like that. They're killing 300 and some babies a day, and that's allowed. But church is not allowed. John MacArthur said, I'm sorry, we have to obey God rather than men. We're meeting. Our people are coming. So they have thousands of people meeting in their church. He says, he's the one that said all this, I heard last night, 99.99% chance of making it. It's not going to kill you. It's not going to hurt you. Schools are not going to hurt you. There's not one case of a child transmitting COVID to a teacher in the entire world. You don't have to worry. So what I'm saying is we face some dangers right now too. And there are those who want to destroy us and stop us. There are those who want to destroy our country. It's happening in Portland. It's happening in many major cities. They're burning and destroying. These people are communists. They have an agenda. If they get their way, they will stamp us out. They will fail because nobody will stamp out God's church. But we could suffer along the way. So coming back to Peter here, he's been told he's going to be crucified, and he's there in prison, and the church is praying for him. Now here's what I want you to notice. I want you to notice how unfair things are in God and in the world. Today we hear about equality all the time, and it's such a joke. We need to have greater equality. And there should be equality of income. And I just think, who are you kidding? Where is there equality anywhere? I lived in El Paso for 21 years. It's a desert. They don't get equality of rain. Here we get rain all the time. Louisiana gets rain all the time. The desert doesn't get any. It's inequality. There are people who are fat. There are people who are thin. There are people who are tall. There are people who are short. There's no equality. Who told you there's supposed to be equality? There are people who make money. They know how to make money. Some of them make it in an unjust way, of course. But a lot of them, they were smart and they thought of something and they made a lot of money. You want to take it away from them and give it to people who didn't think of anything to make it equal? You're robbing them then. You're taking their freedom because you think this will give this person more freedom. How's that equal? There's no equality. There's no such thing. In the Word of God, there's no equality. James was executed. Peter was put in prison and they prayed for him. And as we'll see here in a minute, he got out.
Acts 9, I'm sorry.
Acts 12.
Acts 12, thank you.
Why did one man die? And there's no time for prayer for him. And the other man is put in prison and there's prayer. Why did Jesus say to Peter, you're going to be crucified one day, your hands will be stretched out, you'll be taken where you don't want to go, and say, if it's my will that John live to the end, what's that to you? There's no equality. God works with each person in the way he's going to work. If you read the book of Hebrews at chapter 11, you read about God who delivered people from all kinds of dangers and stuff, and he saved them and gave them victories and stuff. And then you get to the end of chapter 11, it says, but others were sawn in two. They were killed, they were beaten, they were tortured, they wandered around and hid in mountain caves and stuff like that, and the world wasn't worthy of them. Both of those were people of God. Why did some get delivered from the mouth of lions and others were fed to lions and they were eaten in the Colosseum? Some people were delivered from battles and from dangers. Other people died. The three Hebrew young men in Daniel were delivered out of the fiery furnace. I got to tell you, many people have been burned at the stake in Christian history. God didn't love them as much as he loved those three Hebrew guys? No. The thing is, what God does, we don't always understand. And so you don't serve God because of certain results. Somebody said to me yesterday, this isn't working for me. My family's all falling apart. We're praying for them and nothing's happening. God's not answering the prayers. And I said, look, he still could answer before they die. You know what I mean? There's many, many cases in the Bible where God promised somebody something and it was 20, 30 years later that he did it. Or they never saw it in their life, but God was going to do it. God delivered Israel out of Egypt. But for 400 years, a lot of other people stayed in Egypt. They were slaves for 400 years before God delivered them. What about all them? So that's the point. Now let's come to verse 6. You'll see what I'm getting at here. Verse 6, Hebrews 12:6. The night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound with two chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. See there, he's got chains on him, two guards, and he's chained a chain to each guard. And he's got to sleep. And the poor guards, they got to be chained too. What a job. Chained to this guy in a prison cell and sit there all night with him while he snores. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. Quick, get up, he said. And the chains fell off Peter's wrists. Then the angel said to him, put on your clothes and sandals. And Peter did so. Wrap your cloak around you and follow me, the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison, but he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. They passed the first and the second guards and came to the iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them by itself, and they went through it. When they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left him. And then Peter came to himself and said, now I know without a doubt that the Lord sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches and from everything the Jewish people were anticipating. So this is so cool. He's sleeping there, and, some people say, see how peaceful he was. He trusted the Lord. Well, maybe. I'm sure he trusted the Lord. He was an apostle. But at the same time, what else could he do? He just went to sleep. There's nothing else he could do. He's expecting to be executed, probably, but there's nothing he can do. He just goes to sleep. He's still a man, So yesterday, was it today's? So it was Tuesday. They cut my ear, and they stitched me up and everything, and they they had to cut my face and graft skin on it and everything. I have it on both sides. I've had lots of skin cancers in my life. So they say, we're going to stick you, with lidocaine, and then we're going to cut you, and then we're going to put it in the microscope and see if it's we got it all. Hopefully we'll get it all, and if not, we have to cut you some more. When they did this one, they had to cut me again and again. They had to stick more and more and more. The lidocaine really hurts worse than the cutting. And they push you down and they stick you. And one girl actually stuck through my ear and squirted onto my shirt.
Oh.
And, she said, the doctor said, you're really bleeding. And yeah, I bleed like that, And I told her, I said, when you guys do things like this to me, I always think of soldiers and stuff, or pilots that are taken prisoner, like in Vietnam, and we're going to pull out your fingernails. We're going to torture you, I always think, geez, I hate it when you tell me I'm going to give you a shot. I don't like to give blood. I don't like shots. I don't like needles. I don't like cutting. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm like, I'll tell you everything. I promise I'll tell you everything. I can't imagine just you're going to do that to me, and I'm just going to sit here and just be quiet. And so, Peter, can you imagine you're lying there, and it's like, probably they're going to kill me tomorrow. They're going to crucify me. It's not like the nurses, at least they don't try to hurt you. They don't want to hurt you. They do, but they don't want. The doctor doesn't want to hurt you. But these people, they want to hurt you. They're going to hurt you big time. They want you to suffer. They're going to torture you tomorrow. So he's lying there probably thinking about that. And then this amazing thing, this angel comes. I just love to read about this because, he first of all, look he radiates light. He doesn't need a flashlight on his phone. He can radiate light. He's an angelic being. He's a supernatural being. He can appear anywhere. He can go through walls. He comes in. He makes there be light. And so then he wakes Peter up. He strikes him and he wakes him up. Speaking of telephones, I don't want to talk to you right now. Sorry about that. It's Arizona. I wonder what they want. I don't know anybody in Arizona. And so he lights him up and he wakes him up. And then he says, put on your sandals and your robe and stuff. And the chains just fall off. Now, I guess they had keys back then and stuff. So we need a key to open that chain and get it off his wrist. The angel doesn't need that. Chains fall off. First, there's a light.
The soldiers slept through all this.
Yeah, they must have been asleep, or maybe the angel put them to sleep. And then he tells them to get dressed, so the angel doesn't dress him. That's cool, They do certain things they can do, we can't do, but they won't do what we can do. You got to get dressed. Dress yourself. So then they walk out, and Peter has had visions before. I've never had a vision, but apparently visions are so clear and strong that Peter thought this was a vision. So he'd had visions before. Remember, he saw the sheet lowered down in chapter 10, 9 and 10. There was I think it's 10, where the sheet was lowered down. He had a vision. So he's seen visions before. And so he thinks this is a vision.
Would you call it the same thing as an epiphany?
Well, epiphany today mostly means kind of like you understood something. You had this revelation.
It isn't actually a vision?
Well, a real epiphany is, it's when phanos is a Greek word for appearance, and so it's an appearance. Epiphanos, God appears. So that's what that means, really. But nowadays we often say it was like an epiphany, I had this, for years I was having this trouble, and then I had this epiphany, and I realized what my problem was, and so we use it that way today too, right? But this is a real angelic visitation. A spirit being from another world comes, and takes him out. And he thinks it's all a vision. And they walk and nobody's seeing them. The guards they don't see, they don't notice. And doors just open. The metal gates just zing, they open, they walk through, they walk through, they walk through. Then they come to the main gate of the prison and it opens. No electric eye, like we have at grocery stores, or you step on something and it opens. The angel can do that. Just opens the door. Big old gate, just swings open. They walk out, it shuts. He walks him down one street and then he's gone. And notice, see, it's so cool how God does this. Now, I've never had anything supernatural like this. I mean, I've had something supernatural the way I became a Christian, but I never had anything like this. But the angel takes him as far as he needs, and then he's gone. God only gives what's needed, and then you're on your own again. And so Peter, he comes to himself, and he's like, wow, this is real. I'm out here. I'm outside the prison. And it's night. So it's dark. They don't have much light back then in those cities, just torches here and there. He's out there on the street. And it's like, that was real. I'm out. So he comes to himself and he thinks, what should I do? And so he decides, I know what, I'll go to Mary's house. They always are praying there. There'll be some believers there and I'll go tell them what happened and then I'll go hide. So he decides what to do. So he comes to his senses. This is interesting, though. I like this thing. It says he comes to himself, verse 11, right? He came to himself. That's the same word that's used in Luke 15 about the prodigal son. When he was out feeding the pigs, it says in Luke 15:17, he came to himself and said, how many of my father's servants have plenty to eat? And here I am starving and feeding these pigs. I'll go back to my father and I'll tell him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm not worthy to be called your son. Please make me like one of your servants. He came to himself. Peter came to himself. It's the same thing, same words. So that's how you become a Christian. You got to come to yourself. What it means is you all of a sudden realize, I'm a sinner. I'm lost. I'm not accepted by God. I'm not right with God. The young man, he came to himself and he said, I left my father's house. I had it made there. I blew it all. I went out and wasted all my money. Now I'm feeding pigs. I'm hungry. This is stupid. What am I doing? I need to go home. He came to himself. That's what we call repentance, when you come to yourself and you realize, I need God. I need to stop going my way. I need to go God's way, That's how you come to yourself. But here, Peter came to himself and he says, wow, God has sent an angel and he's delivered me from everything that the Jewish people were expecting. And so, it's just a really cool thing. And this angel does this. Most of us will never have any kind of experience like this. But yet, the Bible says in Psalm 34:7, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who love the Lord. And so we have angels around us even now. They're watching us. And it's really encouraging when you think about that fact, that they're watching you. Yesterday I went for a bike ride and there was a cottonmouth right beside the road, cottonmouth moccasin. And I've killed one right outside my garage door. I opened the side door to take out the trash. There was a moccasin. He didn't get me, thank God. And yesterday, that one didn't get me. I tried to, there was nothing to kill him with. I looked around, there was a rotten tree. I grabbed an old branch, but it was too rotten. When I swung it at him, it broke and he got away. I don't like them. I just do not like them because there's kids around there, ride their bikes and this and that. And if you're not paying attention, you just stepped in the grass, they get you. I had a young man in my church in Texas. I've only known one man in my whole life. I've been here for many, many years, but in my whole life, I've only known one person ever who was bitten by a snake. And this young man, he was walking right in the suburbs of El Paso, Texas. It's town. It's, a residential area. And he was walking and it was about dusk, and out of the corner of his eye, he saw a movement and he looked and the snake bit him. It hit him right in the ankle there.
Was it a baby?
No, it was a full-grown rattler, and it hit him right in the leg. And he got in his car, and his dad was I think, Treasury agent or something. Can't remember. Was he, or maybe DEA? I can't remember what he was. Or anyway, he's a law enforcement. So he called him and said, "Dad, what do I do? This thing bit me." He says, "Get to the nearest hospital, son. Quick, just get there as quick as you can." And he said he could barely drive by the time he got there because it affected his leg. And I went to visit him in the hospital. His whole leg turned sort of purple, reddish purple, all the way up to his heart. On his whole side was reddish purple. And then they got him the antidote, they stuck it in him, but it kept rising, came all the way up onto his chest and then stopped. And they gave him a bunch of antibiotic too. I didn't know, but you have to mix up that antidote.
Not every hospital has different kinds of snake antidotes, and it's a good thing to be familiar with when you're in nursing as to where the facilities are, because in some cases they have to be airlifted and stuff like that.
And
that had to happen a few times in Virginia when I was working there.
Is it real different between a rattler and a moccasin, for example, or a coral snake? Or
I will say there's different kinds of snakes. Now, as far as the moccasins are concerned, another thing that is not true is that they cannot bite you underwater. It's not true. They can bite you underwater. That's another thing to know,
that's
too.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
I killed a big one near my house one time with another man because I was riding my bike and he pulled his golf cart out from his trailer and there was a huge one. And he said, "Do you know what that?" He was from up north. He said, "Do you know what that is?" I said, "That's a moccasin. It's venomous." So he said, "Will you help me?" And so he had a hoe and stuff, and we got him. And it shot venom about 3 or 4 feet through the air. It shot it out of it.
Yeah.
Big fangs came out.
Yeah.
And you live, they say 80% of people live when they're bitten by them. But when I saw this young man, he was very healthy. Let me tell you, he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. You live, but you suffer. That's not pleasant.
Yeah, you might want to check with the Wildlife, Fish and Game, because they may be able to tell you what to do to kind of proof yourself a little bit away from them. Sometimes there's certain critters, like I've had to get a nuisance trapper before because of a coon. But there's certain critters that, like, if you put certain smells out and all that, they will go away, like vinegar and different.
Mothballs. I heard
mothballs.
I'm not
familiar with all of it, but you can actually go to like the county, and they may give you some tips. I'll let you know there's certain places within the county where they're bad. One place they're real bad is if you go like Crystal River out in Fort Island. They're real bad out there. There's certain pockets
they're
where
very bad,
concentrated.
and they're terrible. Well, let's go on because I'm videoing, and so we got to keep going. But
Yeah.
But I want to tell you one other thing. And I'm going to play a song for you about angels in a minute. But I want to tell you something else. There was a guy I read about years ago. His name was Sadhu Sundar Singh. Sadhu means holy man. He was an Indian, a Hindu. I think he was a Hindu. He might have been a Sikh. But anyway, he was of one of those religions. And he got converted to Christ. And he became like a Francis of Assisi. He walked all over India. I think this was in the 1920s, like that, and 30s and stuff. Back then, it was still dangerous for Christians. Sometimes the Hindus, they really don't want Christians coming there. They feel like some of us feel when Muslims come here. It's like, look, if you want to be Muslim, go back there. We're a Christian here. We don't want that here. And that's the way they are. They're national, and it's like, we're Hindus here. We don't want Christians. This guy went around barefoot, wearing a robe, just like a Hindu holy man, and he preached all over, and he was quite a man. And at one point, he was in Tibet preaching, and a Tibetan Lama, that's their religion, Tibetan Buddhism, and they're called lamas, like the Dalai Lama. That's one of the religious leaders. He had him arrested and thrown in this well. And basically, it was a dry well, and they would put a top over it, and they locked it, and they left you there to die. So he was thrown there to die, and they hurt his arm when they threw him in there and stuff, and he was injured, and he was down in this well. And at night, suddenly he heard a noise, and the lid was unlocked and taken off, and a rope was lowered, and the man said to him, he made a loop in the rope. He said, "Step into that," because his arm was hurt. "Step into that, and I'll pull you up." So he stepped in the loop, and he pulled him up out of there, and then he turned to thank him, and the guy was gone, and his arm was healed. And so he went back to the place where he was arrested and started preaching again. And the Lama said, "What are you doing? This is impossible. Like
Go away."
But he didn't do anything more to him. He let him preach. So this was in the 20s or 30s. I can't remember. And so there are stories. I was on a plane once from Miami to Tampa, and a young man told me about how his son, he and his wife had to go do something. So they put their son into the care of some friends, and the friends were going to a party at a pool, and a big community center pool kind of thing. And so they went there, and there's all these kids and everything, and they had the boy, and he kind of after a while was kind of out of their sight for a minute or so, and he jumped in the pool and he couldn't swim. And so this man told me this on this plane. My son, he said, he told me the whole story later, but he said he sank under the water and he was looking up and he could see people up there around the edge of the pool, and he had his hands up and he was like, help, help, but nobody could hear him. And he said, it started to turn gray, Dad, and I was calling for help and no one was going to help me. And then this man, he came and he lifted me up and he put me on the edge of the pool, and then he went away. And he said the boy, adults saw him all of a sudden. He's there sputtering and he's wet. What happened to the boy? What happened? He said, I was in the water and this man got me. Well, what man? Is he around? Do you see him? No, I don't see him. And anyway, so they checked the register or whatever, and there was nobody, that wasn't known, nobody that the kid could see there that was this man, but he said the man saved him. So there's actually,
There are angels.
and the Bible says in Hebrews, sometimes there can be an angel who helps you and you're unaware. Angels unaware. It says many times we've been helped. I've been along the road. I've had my car break down in Mexico at night. I was stuck in the sand at night in Mexico. My wife was in the car. These truckers stopped. My wife told me later she thought they were going to kill me and rape her. But I wasn't afraid at all. It's like, oh, truckers, they're going to help me. And we dug it out and they helped me. I wasn't afraid at all because I just didn't think that. But she thought terrible things. And there's been many things I've done in my life. When I was on drugs one time, I climbed out of a 6th floor apartment, a balcony in Hawaii, and hung down from the railing and swung over to another balcony and landed there. And I could have just died and gone to hell that night, And I was driving really, really fast through Tennessee or Kentucky in an old car, and I was drunk, and I was zooming around the curves, and I was too drunk to really be doing that. And I was zooming around, and all of a sudden, boom, I had a flat, and it's like, we got a flat, and I just turned, and there was a rest area. I pulled right in, I passed out and went to sleep. In the morning, I woke up, and we changed the tire. I had a friend who was in Mexico, and these people tried to flag him down, and they had guns. And he felt like God told him step on it, and he stepped on it and tore off. And they jumped in a pickup and tore after him. And they were going through the mountains in a state over in the west of Mexico. And they're going around the mountains near the ocean and round. He's trying to get ahead of them, and he's just praying and praying. And they're zooming. He told his wife, pray, and their son's in the back. And they're zooming around, and these people are gaining on him. They got guns, and around, but they're out ahead of him quite a ways, and there's quite a few curves in between. And suddenly, boom, his tire blows, and he goes off the road. And he stops, and there's this shack, and these poor Mexicans are awakened, and they're terrified. Like, what are these Americans trying to do? Run over our house? And he turns off his lights, and the truck zooms by, and it didn't see that. He said, I couldn't have done that if I was a stunt driver, but it was perfect. My tire punched right there. I went off the road and stopped, and I was saved. Who knows? But when an angel went and blew that tire, There's lots of things. Let's go on a little bit and then we'll wrap up for today. Verse 12. When this had dawned on him, in other words, when he came to himself, realized an angel had saved him, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, also called Mark, where many people had gathered and were praying. Peter knocked at the outer entrance, and a servant girl named Rhoda. Remember the TV show Rhoda? Came out of Mary Tyler Moore. I always think of her. Her name is Rhoda. The servant girl came to answer the door. When she recognized Peter's voice, she was so overjoyed she ran back in without opening it. And she exclaimed, Peter's at the door. You're out of your mind, they told her. When she kept insisting that it was so, they said, well, it must be his angel. I don't know why they thought that. What do you mean angel? His angel. Anyway, but Peter kept knocking. And when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. Peter motioned with his hand for them to be quiet and described how the Lord had brought him out of prison. Tell James and the brothers about this, he said, and then he left for another place. So this is so cool because, look, the early church, they're praying. They didn't get to pray for James. He was killed. It's too late. But they're praying for Peter. They're praying and they're praying. And, when you pray, you're supposed to pray with faith. But when Peter actually gets out and comes to the door, they say, and the girl says, it's Peter. They say, you're out of your mind. So you can see what I like about that is you think of these early Christians that they had such great faith. They're different from us. They didn't ever doubt anything. No, they were just people like us. They prayed, but the other guy was just killed. So, they're kind of mixed. We can have, sometimes we pray, we We're asking God to do something, but we don't know if he's going to do it, you know?
But he is. Problem is what he's supposed to. He knows what's supposed to happen.
He's going to do what he's going to do, and
There
in
you
this
go.
case, he's going to save this one. But later, Peter's going to be executed. Later on, Peter was crucified. Paul was executed. He was in prison several times, and an angel never got him out. He spent 2 years in prison one time, and he spent longer another time. An angel never got him out. He's Paul. He's one of the greatest apostles to ever live. Why? Don't know. You don't have faith in results. I believe in God so that things will go well for me, and I'll make money, and I'll get this, and I'll get that, and my family will all be like I want. And everything. That's why I serve God. No, you serve God because it's right to serve God, and he made you, and you owe him your life. You don't serve him and trust him for results. Today, people are in turmoil over all that's going on. Why isn't God saving our country? Why is my family divided? Some people are on the left, some are on the right, and we're all fighting. So why is this? You don't serve God, so he'll fix everything for you and make it like you want. The world is a crazy place. God knows what he's doing. He's got purposes for things, and he lets things happen sometimes. Sometimes he delivers this one, he doesn't deliver that one. You don't know why. You got to trust in him that he's God. He knows what's best. But I love this. They're praying, and when the guy they're praying for actually comes to them, they can't believe it, and they say, you're out of your mind. It can't be him. It's his angel. And Rhoda says, no, I'm telling you, he's out there. Like Rhoda, I'm always like, Rhoda, don't leave the guy out there in the street. Why didn't you open the door for him? You know, he's knocking. Open the door first and let him in. But she's just like some of us. She's so excited. She runs off. It's just hilarious, you know. And so finally they say, well, let's go see, you know. And he keeps knocking. Hello? Hello? And so they open up and he says, look, this is what happened. God delivered me. I'm going to go. He tells them, you know, shh. Because, you know, it's dangerous. I got to get out of here. I'm going to take off. I'm not telling you all where, so you won't, if they torture you, you won't have to talk. You know, I'm going to leave. And we don't know where he went. But he took off, you know, and he was allowed to continue preaching and teaching for a while, a few more years. By the way, I had a note here that there was a girl. I used to be in a thing called Youth of the Mission. And when it first got started in the 60s, they went to the Bahamas after a hurricane. And they were ministering to people there and everything, doing whatever they could do. And there was this one guy who was blind, and this team actually prayed for him to see. And suddenly he could see, and the girl who was praying for him, she fainted. Because she couldn't believe, like, you know, she was praying for him to see, but when it actually happened, she fainted. So that's just how, you know, faith is believing. It's not knowing. And so we believe God is going to do this, but we don't know. Always just pray the best you know, like pray for healing. If they're sick and with cancer, you know, mostly people don't get healed of cancer, but God could do it. So we pray for him to do it. And we pray, muster your faith and say, Lord, heal this person. Do what you want with this person. You know, do what you want. And then you pray, and he could do anything. But if it doesn't work out the way you plan, don't say, well, God isn't for real. He doesn't do it. God doesn't exist. He doesn't do anything. No, he does things the way he's going to do them. And we don't understand everything. I had this terrific thing I read. I wish I had a quote for you. I'd read it to you. But this doctor of theology that I respect named C.A. Carson, he had this thing and he said, so let's say a young mother has cancer. And you say, you know, why would God allow this? She's a mother, and why? There can't be a God if they're suffering like this. And many people do that. They say, there's no God. Why would he allow all this? You know, children die, and children have leukemia, and there's war crimes and all these horrors. There can't be a good God if he lets this. Or either he's not powerful and he can't stop it, right? And C.A. Carson says, look, I have just a small brain. It weighs 3 pounds. And I can think of a lot of reasons why God might do it. Maybe the woman was in sin, and through this she repents and turns back to God. Or maybe she's a godly woman, but her son, who's 20 years old, has gone astray, and now this brings him back to God because his mom is dying and he really prays. Or maybe the way she's going to die is going to be such an example to many people. Like my co-pastor died of cancer out in El Paso. And when I did his funeral, I said, this man showed us how it's done. He died with honor. He died with faith. He kept praising the Lord. And, you know, he taught us lessons. We watched him die, and maybe God allowed it for that reason. maybe different people will be awakened and they'll be praying because of it. You know, you just don't know what all God could be doing. And C.A. Carson says, I just got a little brain and I thought of those things in a matter of minutes. God could be doing millions of things. Millions of things. It's like they say, you know, a butterfly flaps its wings here and there could be a sandstorm in Sahara that comes as a result. You don't know how everything's connected and what God's doing. So our faith mostly has to be in God, that He's good. He has our well-being at heart. In the end, it will be made up for us. Anything we suffered, don't you worry. You're going to be recompensed, you know. But in the meantime, we're to trust the Lord. So let me play this. Let me stop the video here. And then I want to play this.